Hi, everybody. Welcome to Primo Perspective. I'm Kristen Borth.
And I'm Lorie Mills.
Lorie. Okay, so have you
Yes,
been watching or following any of the healthcare fraud takedown stuff
I
online?
have. I've read some articles. So very interesting. I've got a lot to say about a lot of it, but I'll let you start because I have a feeling I'm gonna really dig into some of this.
Okay, well, this is good
Oh,
because I think I have a lot to say as well, but also I, as impressed as I am, and for a moment, I'm going to sound a little bit like a woo girl for this administration. But really, it's not that. It's mostly just the fact that if any administration had dove into this as deeply as they are trying to do, and don't get me wrong, they've only touched the surface. They've
oh
only
yeah,
touched the
yeah,
surface. Some of these big groups that assess fraud, waste, and abuse in healthcare estimate that we're at 300 billion a year in fraud, waste, and abuse.
right.
I tend to think that probably in terms of fraud, we're probably around the 60 to 100 billion dollars, and that's my own personal perspective. But them touching 6.5 billion just impresses me
Yeah.
because I would have been this way, and unfortunately I was really no fan of Joe Biden, but I would have literally been in the back cheering him on if he had been
Yes,
doing this,
yes.
because
Yeah,
this helps our healthcare system so much.
it
So
really does.
I want to hear your first guttural thought on fraud, waste, and abuse and what this takedown is doing.
So my first thought is it makes me angry.
Yes.
Very, very angry.
Yeah.
Because when you read into this, the populations that they're targeting are some of our most at risk populations, people with substance abuse disorders, mental
Yep.
health areas,
Yep.
uh, hospice.
Mm-hmm.
Those are
Elderly.
areas that are just really, these patients are at they're vulnerable. And not only that, we start talking about all the fraud in healthcare. I mean, in wound care. Oh my goodness. I work a lot in wound care. I have a very extensive background in wound care. And so it just infuriates me to see what is going on in these areas and how it's
Mm-hmm.
happening. And I've got some really cool stories. I actually, two of these fraud cases, I had a client that was submitted contracts. I don't know if it is from these companies, but was submitted contracts for similar programs they wanted to initiate in their facility.
Mm-hmm.
And myself and the lawyer looked at them and we're like, we got serious concerns about this, really serious concerns. So the CEO was like, no, we'll just hold on this. We won't pursue this. And now here we are a few months later, and we're coming out with these fraud cases. It
Yeah.
is unreal. I do want to tell any administrator, if you get a contract that just seems too good to be true, or you hear about a service that
Yeah.
is too good to be true, and it specifically relies on billing insurance companies for what you're finding, it probably is too good to be true, and you
Mhm.
need to investigate it.
Yeah.
And especially if it's a separate company bringing you this, going, oh, you can make millions of dollars, then you really need to look at it and investigate it. Have your billing experts look at it, have your legal team look at it.
Yeah.
Um, because it a lot of times it is too good to be true. We all know
Mhm.
how hard it is to get paid in healthcare. So
Yes.
if you're raking in not just millions of dollars, some of these people were raking in billions of dollars.
Insane.
So if you're raking in that kind of money, there's probably something that's wrong. You
Yes.
really need to question it.
Ugh.
So I'll go ahead, let you elaborate on your thoughts about it.
Well, like you, I was initially very, very pissed off, like so angry. And as my more, logical common sense brain started taking over and my anger subsided, I was very, very, very happy to know that somebody was looking into it.
Mhm.
Because I do feel like when our federal government dives into something and shows that they are wanting to be good stewards of the money that we, the citizens, are providing to the government, that is impressive. But
Mhm.
also, it sets a precedence for the states to do the same thing.
Yep.
And as the states do the same thing, then companies start doing the same thing. And it's a trickle effect. And I have
Mhm.
loved that. The other part that still floors me, still just kind of, it grinds my gears, is that while the fraud, waste, and abuse was internal, meaning
Mhm.
like it was our providers, it was people internally, somehow it was also being sent over to like other
Overseas, yes.
countries,
Oh
and
my
they
gosh, that
were
was
coming in.
yes.
How?
That blew me away when they were talking about they picked up these people in all these foreign countries, and I'm going, oh my
Yes.
gosh, how did they do
Mhm,
this? That we're
mhm.
not talking about a little money. We're talking
No.
about billions of dollars.
Yeah.
How did they set this up for billions of dollars to be going overseas? Just
Yes,
it blew me away. Blew me
it did.
away. I do want to quote one thing that I thought was interesting, because it just dives right on into payers and the what I think about a payer. So the
Yeah.
message that the federal government put out, this was the message. If you put profits over patients, you should expect to be put in prison.
Yeah.
Profits over patients should equal prison. What are our insurance companies doing? The same
Oh, I
thing. They're
know.
putting profits over patients.
Yeah.
So we've got to get out of that mentality. And I
Yeah.
want to say this. These guys that committed blatant, utter fraud,
Yeah.
they deserve to go to prison.
They
They
do.
deserve it.
Mhm.
Now, are there instances where a provider unintentionally
Yeah.
bills claims that would be considered fraud or um go against oh gosh, I can't even think what the name of it is, but anyway, if they're not intentionally doing this,
Yes.
they still get penalized. They can still get penalized.
Yeah.
You have to show intent. And I think a lot of times in most providers, it's not necessarily they intended to fraud. They didn't have the experts or the
Right.
talent coding and billing their claims
Yes.
to identify this is right or this is wrong. And so I
Yeah.
think that sometimes that can be the case. But when you're talking about millions and billions of dollars, no, this is a whole nother ball game.
Oh
Whole
my
nother
goodness.
ball game. Yeah.
Whole different ball
So
game.
there
Lorie,
was
though,
one go
Lorie,
Satchel,
Lorie.
you had a lot to say. Go ahead.
No, I like it. I like it. But what I was going to say was it falls right in line with that intent to do harm. But
Mm-hmm.
these images they're showing of the things that they have uh, recouped or taken back. I mean, $1 million necklace, like
Yes. Yes.
cars, estates,
Cars.
things like that. That is an intent just in and of itself, because you are purchasing these things that are far beyond just a typical
Yep.
provider or DME,
Mm-hmm.
company's abilities. And
Right.
so that I only wanted to point that out because when we talk about this, it could sound like we're being, really harsh on some of the clinicians that fell into this. But a lot of it wasn't that. It was that intent to do harm
Intent. It was
and
intent.
how it's showcased and how it
Yep.
looks. So yeah. Oh,
So let me just tell you this. This one really caught me. We've seen a lot about telehealth and
yeah.
billing hours and things like that. So there was a group of therapists, mental health providers. They were billing over 500 hours per day that they were providing services. There was no way that all of the providers in that group could have provided 500 hours a day. if they had not, they would have had to have worked over 24 hours a day. Okay. And we know there's only 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
So they couldn't even come up with the amount of hours for one day. If you're going to commit fraud, you need to be smart about it. I mean, come on. You know, I say that in jest. I don't want anybody to commit fraud, but it's like I would tell my docs when I would teach about billing by time.
Yeah.
If you're going to bill out a level 5, you can't see but about 10 patients a day if you're billing by time, because that's almost 10 hours or an hour per patient. It's like 50 minutes per patient.
Yeah.
You can't bill out more than 10 because you're not working more than 10. So, you know, you got to think this stuff through. You want me to tell you how I think this all really got caught? Because it was looking at data analytics. I think Elon Musk and he was doing with the AI, I think that's what prompted this, because it's not humanly possible for people to analyze this much data. It's not humanly possible. I mean, I've done data analytics on some things before, and there's only so much you can do as a human. I think a lot of this was caught by AI. Now, you know how I feel about AI. I'm a little skeptical about some things on it, but in this case, I think it is spot on. This is exactly the kind of things it should be used for. Finding things like this.
Yeah. I do think that AI helped identify them, and then from there, like, we've just hit the tip of the iceberg where we're going to start diving into this, and we're going to start seeing that reckoning that I've mentioned multiple times start to come down. And I didn't know it would come this way, but I think that it helps a lot because we have a duty to our patients to make sure that we are being responsible with our money so our organizations can be there to last and to take care of them. But also, okay, I'm going to punt this question to you.
Okay.
Do you truly think that payers consider themselves healthcare providers?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
you do.
They do. They do.
I don't think they do. I think that's why they act the way that they do. I don't think they do. I think they consider themselves on the peripheral of healthcare. And they are just a supporting actor. I don't think they consider themselves, as that. If they did, they would do no harm by providing effective and supportive care through their components.
Oh, Kristen, you're so naive. You're so naive. Oh,
I think
they are, but in the disguise of their healthcare provider, because who can a provider sit behind a desk, never lay eyes on a patient, and deny services if he's not rendering care? Because think about it.
But
he knows all the care. Well, that doesn't mean they don't consider themselves a provider.
I mean, part of the healthcare, I know they consider them part of the healthcare network, right? Where they're doing that. But I don't think they actually consider themselves a player in healthcare, as in directly taking care of the patient. I think they're like Wall Street. It's like, oh, we don't really mess with anything, day to day, even though they set the tone for everything else.
Right.
That's what I think.
So this is what I found humorous and I don't want to call which payer it was because I can't remember exactly, but there was a payer that started establishing clinics and, walk-in clinics at, maybe it was at Walmart, somewhere like that. But the kicker was they closed all their clinics because they were not making any money because they were having trouble getting claims paid. So I just thought that was humorous that, okay, you want to play, but then you get into our sandbox and you realize, ooh, this is hard because nobody wants to pay me.
We're not making any money.
Right.
That being the case, that is part of why I think that so much fraud, waste, and abuse does end up happening because investors get involved and they're like, oh, we can't make any money. They're putting a lot of pressure on departments. They're putting a lot of pressure in different areas. I'm not saying that this is an okay thing. I'm just saying I think this is where a lot of it somewhat stems from is we've got to make this business viable. We've got to make this business make money. Oh, look, here's a loophole. And nobody's paying attention. And so then they do.
I know you read the same article. You sent me the article on this fraud and abuse. So how did you like the one where the hospice set up? Because one of the most audited services is if you have a hospice and a patient is discharged alive from hospice care, that triggers red flags for CMS. And so they're going to audit all of those cases. So the person that set up this hospice was paying an employee of a funeral home anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000 per time that they provided demographics and information about the deceased patient. So what they were doing is they would take that information, set up a hospice record, they would backdate it, fraudulent medical records. I mean, this was definitely intentional. They created fraudulent medical records. And billed out a few days of hospice care, and then the patient died. Well, it was several $1 billion they got off of this. Or $1 million anyway. But I was just shocked. I'm like, so who sits around and thinks up, okay, let me do this. Let me create this shell hospice, and I will pay somebody to give me dead people's information and register them and get paid by the government. Those are just flat out crooks. They are doing this to be a crook. That is exactly what they're doing it for.
100%. So that specific situation resonated with me so much because we recently just a family member passed away. And we were going through this. And so I was having to go and pick up the cremation to take it to this building where they store it. And as I went to go there, I was so impressed with the funeral home director because he came out and he said, we have to be very careful. Can you please sign, this information? So as I'm signing, I'm like reading it. And he said, you wouldn't believe how much just my little town of like less than 20,000 people, how much scamming goes on.
Right.
And I'm sitting here thinking, now this was a few weeks ago before I read the article, I'm sitting here thinking like, what kind of scamming would be happening? Like, this is ridiculous. What are you talking about? I didn't ask him. I just, put that in the back of my mind and thought about it later. And then as I was reading that article and reading that component, I was like,
this is why. Yeah.
This is how this happened. It was so shocking to me. I mean, additionally, and I will say this, I felt really frustrated during that process because we needed to get Social Security to stop any type of payments, to stop any type of things. Well, now you have to do that all online, and then Social Security triggers everybody else. Well, that took days, days to happen. In the meantime, if there were scammers that were trying to do that left so much open time to have this happening. It showed some of the kinks in the process of making sure that we stop this type of behavior. Because honestly, I want my money to go to helping patients. I want my money to go to helping people in this situation when they need help. But I also want that due process and that absolute vigilance to make sure that we don't have fraud, waste, and abuse happening in such grand scales over years. This wasn't like
this was months. Years. It wasn't just recent. I mean, it was years.
Yeah.
I'm like you. When I was looking at the things that these people were purchasing, there was one person had built a resort in the Philippines, or was going to build this big resort in the Philippines, and
Yes.
cars and all of this money. I
Yeah.
think, where did I read? They got like $182 million in cash that they
Yeah.
confiscated. That was on top of all of the other stuff.
Gosh. Yeah.
182 million in cash.
Mm-hmm. Oh my
I
goodness.
can't even fathom that. I mean, that
Mm-mm.
is unreal. It was 455 people that they arrested for
Which,
this.
okay, for the amount that they're getting or seeking, that 6.5 billion, and that's,
Mm-hmm.
I should actually clarify, because that was something that the article mentioned, and a couple other articles mentioned that I researched, is that this isn't all taxpayer money. So we like to think that it is, and we, a large portion of it is,
Right.
but this isn't all taxpayer money. So it's not all uh happening to us individually, right?
Right.
But what what just shocked me was that 6.5 billion divided by 455 people, or people right now, companies right now, that is nothing. Like, these people were
Right.
raking it in for just being crooks. It
Right.
was
And the other
crazy.
thing that kind of was eye opening to me is only 95 of those 455 were physicians.
Oh yeah.
It
Yeah,
was
that's a good
it was
point.
that was it. Only 90. Can you imagine? I mean, we're talking across the board support staff and
Yep.
people. These are not care providers. These were just support people that were raking this money in.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's shocking, and it really does give healthcare a bad name. It
It
really
does.
does. It
Mhm.
makes it very difficult for hospitals and all. I know my daddy. I love my little daddy, but he's 80, fixing to be 89, and girl, he can be difficult. Difficult. He'll tell me, only reason I got to go back to the doctor is because I have Medicare and they just want to get paid. When he has to go back every 3 months to get his medicine refilled.
Oh
And I'm
man.
like, Daddy, that's not really true. Yes, it is. That's the only reason they make me come back. I've got Medicare. They just make me come back because I have Medicare. And I know it probably feels that way to some people, but there are reasons a lot of times we have to do things in healthcare. Like, you cannot have a joint replacement unless you've been through a full course of physical therapy and
Yeah.
that fails. And even though the doctor knows most likely you're going to end up with the joint replacement, he
Yeah.
knows the therapy's not going to fix any of it. He cannot do the joint replacement until
Yeah.
the patient goes through the rehab.
Yeah.
Well, why is that happening? Because they were doing so many joint replacements that really didn't require joint replacements.
Yep.
Rehab would have fixed it. That's why they're having to go through rehab. So
Yeah.
you can't go have an MRI until you've had plain films.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, you can tell how old I am. I'm saying plain films. I'm old. But you can't have an MRI without having plain films. So, and my daddy would get so mad. He'd be like, well, they're only doing it because of Medicare. They're going to get paid extra.
Mhm.
I'm like, no, Daddy, you have to have that done before you go have the other done. And the doctor usually already knows that
Yeah.
the plain films are not going to show anything. You got to go have the MRI. So,
Yeah.
but there's reasons and pathways we have to take to get to that final outcome. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes patients don't understand that.
Yeah.
And so when they hear about patients or about providers getting busted for fraud, that's what they think is, oh, I'm having to go to the doctor every 3 months. That's fraud. And they're just, doing that to make extra money. And that's not the case.
Yeah, it's true. And I think that misunderstanding oftentimes makes them a little bit more frustrated, and then gives an even,
Mhm.
already difficult relationship between, healthcare and patients,
Right.
gives it even more fodder for them to be frustrated with. But I will say that, as patients start to understand how fraud and waste and abuse starts happening, they'll understand a little bit more of that process. Okay, we're
Right.
doing our due diligence to make sure that you don't have to get to surgery, because surgery shouldn't be the goal every time.
No, it should
And
not.
that's what they think. It's like, oh, well, I'm going to have surgery. I remember, okay, I was in high school. No, I was in college. I was just into college, and there was a basketball player who he hurt his leg and he had to go to PT, and he was like, oh no, they keep telling me I'm going to have surgery. They keep telling me that I'm going to have surgery. PT totally fixed it and it was great. But his immediate level of care was like, oh, I have to have surgery. It was almost like he wanted to have surgery.
Right.
Like, come on now. You don't want surgery.
I think people, I think sometimes we do take healthcare for granted, the things that can be done. And you don't realize that sometimes when you have surgery, it doesn't completely fix the problem. It may change it a little bit, but you may still have pain. You may still have issues even after surgery. That's why you sign that little consent, the informed consent you're supposed to get right before you go to the operating room that nobody reads. Somebody's supposed to explain it to you, and I'm not sure that it's always explained correctly. But yeah, I think patients, they think that a pill's going to fix everything or surgery's going to fix all of it. It won't be a problem anymore. And that is not always the case. It's just not.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting world we live in.
It is. I want to pivot just a little bit because I want to tap into your incredible insights into medical billing, medical coding, all of the areas. So if JD Vance and President Trump came to you and said, okay, we're already looking at fraud, waste, and abuse within healthcare, Lorie, tell us where to look next. Where would you tell them to look next?
Where could I tell them to look? I think telehealth would be a good place to start with these companies that have online. You go online and you pick your doctor and you get your prescription, things like that. I think that's really a place they need to be looking. I think, and they're already looking at wound care, but wound care is another area that there's a lot of high dollar care that's provided just because of the patient population. There again, people that are billing based on time, look at that time. I know CMS is wanting to transition to billing based on time. And I think ultimately they're thinking, well, that will decrease our payments because you can only see 10 level 5s in a day. So everybody's going to stop billing level 5 so they can get their patients, see their patients. There'll be 2s and 3s then, so we won't be paying as much. But it's pretty easy to pad those numbers, and somebody's got to be looking at it and making sure that, okay, our total time billed for that day is realistic as to what that provider can actually work in a single day. So I think those are two areas that we would be seeing that. And of course, DME has always been a big issue. So I think they'll continue looking at that. I don't know. I think from one area they could look at is utilization of ERs as primary care centers. But I think that's going to be more on the patient than the provider. The provider has to take care of these people if they come in. But I think that's going to fall more on the patient. But that's an area that we see a lot of abuse. Unnecessary ambulance transports. When you have a patient that calls at 2:00 in the morning for abdominal pain that they've been having for 5 years, and the medics have to roll out of bed and go get them and come back. And so what made this pain after 5 years to where you had to call ambulance to come get you to be seen in the ER at 2 a.m.? Oh, nothing. I just wanted to get it checked out. Things like that. I think, and we have to remember that it can't always fall on the provider to police all of this stuff. We've got to start making our patients take some accountability for some things. You can do a medical screen at the ER and you can say a patient has to go to a clinic. And I've seen hospitals set up clinics, right next door and tell the patient, hey, we can't see you as an ER. You don't screen out as an emergency, but there's a clinic, you know, walk-in clinic next door, or across the street, whatever. So we've got to start
Mhm.
not just looking at providers. We've got to start looking at patients to see as well. What
Yeah.
can we change there? What behaviors can we change?
Yeah. Well, and you know, in that, and you bring up a really good point, but in that, in Medicare needs to look at how they're somewhat paying for some of these things, because I know with my grandma, for example, she can go to an ER and she pays, and I don't remember what the amount is, but she pays a very small portion.
Hmm.
She goes into the clinic and it's much higher how much she has to pay when she's on Medicare. And maybe it's how she's set up, maybe it's how it's structured, those types of things. But that's the incentive to go to the ER for her. She
Right.
goes to the ER way too many times. She shouldn't be in the ER that much.
Yeah.
But all of that to say is that there's also some structures that I think encourage patients to do some of those funky processes where they're like, oh, instead of, you know, going in to see my provider on a random Tuesday, I'm going to just wait until this is unbearable, and then I'm going to get a medical transport, and then I'm going to go to the ER, but I still
Yeah.
paid less, or I think I do, still paid less because it's out of pocket, not realizing that like the whole process is somewhat broken in how it's
Right.
viewed by the patient. I'm not saying
Right.
that the patients, you know, are completely misinformed. Oftentimes, though, I think that the older population who is on Medicare, that is one of their areas that it's hard to explain it to them. It's hard for them to really grasp the whole concept. And so
Hmm.
the ER is just where we go. That's just what we do, unless
Yeah.
they tell me to go to the clinic.
You know, I can remember growing up, we hardly ever went to the doctor, period. I mean, to the family
Same.
practice doctor. And you were dying if you went to the ER. I mean, there
Yes.
you just didn't do that.
No.
And now
Yeah.
it's just common practice that I'll just go to the ER. And what kills me is you'll call your family practice doctor and you'll say, "Oh, I've got such and such going on. I can I come get in for an appointment today? I don't feel good. I'm sick." No, we don't have any appointments today. We can get you in 2 weeks. And it's
Yeah.
like, okay. And then they go, well, you just need to go to the ER.
Yes.
We see
Take
primary
that.
care send a lot of patients, especially on Friday afternoons, to the
Uh-huh.
ER. So that's a part of our culture too. We need to
Yeah,
change all of that. We really do need to change it. I
we
don't know
do.
exactly how we're going to change it, but it does need to be changed drastically.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what the answer is, but I do think, you know, an ER that pushes them out to a clinic that is open is a really good option.
Right.
Um, maybe not totally viable for every ER, you know, healthcare facility, but a good option. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just excited and encouraged that we're actually looking into some of this fraud, waste, and
Oh, I
abuse
know.
that kind of gives us a bad name anyways, but then gives
Yeah.
us the opportunity to correct it. So I'm
Yeah,
excited about that.
I'm glad we are too, and to kind of build off what you said earlier. Everybody knows I'm conservative Republican, but like you said, if Joe Biden had a done this, I'd have give him his props. I've been like,
Oh
go
yeah.
Joe,
Yeah.
take
Yeah.
care of this.
Yeah.
This is, to me, it's not a political thing.
No.
This is a right and wrong thing,
Yes.
and I think that them going after these people is a great step in
Mm-hmm.
getting our Medicare CMS to where they're not spending so much on fraudulent issues. Yeah.
Yeah. The goal is to make healthcare better.
Yes, it is. And this is a great start.
Yep. Yep. All right. Well, Lorie, until next time, we'll wrap it up here.
All right, Kristen. Later,
All right.
guys.
Bye.